an incredibly well-cited paper from 2013 written by Jose van Dijk, a communication scientist based at Utrecht University currently, starts off with a quote from Mark Zuckerberg from around 2010. In this quote, Zuckerberg says, "You have one identity. The days of you having a different image for your work friends or co-workers and for the other people you know are probably coming to an end pretty quickly. Having two identities for yourself is an example of a lack of integrity." Social media and identity have always been connected, and those in charge of these platforms know exactly what our online personas mean for them, both socially and especially for their business. Facebook and other social networking sites really push for this idea of one identity, having one clear, open online person. They want us to spill our habits and share our interests and personal lives. They believe in this total transparency, but not like naively for our safety or our privacy or for our sake, because they don't want catfishing. Of course, they are curious about who we are, and they want to definitely pinpoint people to the exact person that they are in their offline lives, but mostly because advertisers crave truthful data. There is probably not one identity I can present or you can. The way I talk here in front of a camera, the way I talk to students given a lecture or at a conference or to my friends is different every single time. Even if I talk about the same topic, and trust me, I talk a lot about social media and identity. This kind of way we present ourselves, we perform our identities, is not something that has come around with social media or with online communities. It has been a big part of communications and social psychology research in the past century. A name that is very important here would be Erving Goffman, who already back in 1959 talked about identity as a performance. And now with online opportunities to present different sides of ourselves, his theories are even more important and very visible in our everyday lives. So in the very beginning of social networking sites, these social networking sites at their essence were about connectedness. Very simply meaning that it would want to bring your offline connections into the online world, so that you connect with people you know from school or from your sports club. That was the basic idea of Facebook at first as well, right? It was created for Harvard students to connect with one another. But this connectedness transitioned to something we call connectivity. This shift involves the use of algorithms as coded measures of social interaction to stimulate as many connections as possible, leading us to what is now known as the connective turn on social media platforms. As social media platforms change and they gradually nudge users to create personas that are kind of standardized and they don't change and they are this one identity, we also develop the skills to navigate these algorithms and to learn these mechanisms. We don't only understand them, but we kind of figured out a way to play them and to use them to our advantage, to build followers, to create content and target certain audiences. So now we can think, what does this even mean, considering Zuckerberg's argument that we should have just one identity for integrity's sake? But we shouldn't go as far as to assume that self-promotion and the self-performance that we heard from Goffman is inherent to our nature, that we always seek to present ourselves in the best way possible. Sometimes it is good for us in a certain situation to not present ourselves the best way possible. And it's also not fair to label this self-promotion as the sole result of social networking sites, depicting these platforms as solely entities that want to exploit us. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. We, as humans, crave some sort of social approval, and these social networking sites also build mechanisms that now work based on these social approvals. This creates a sort of vicious circle, pushing us into existing and navigating the world, mostly online, but more and more offline as well, as kind of a project of branding and self-promotion. Think about how, I don't know, having some traction on LinkedIn can help you get a job, how having a social media platform and talking to a camera can help my research. My whole life, myself, my face, my identity becomes kind of a project, a brand that I can try to sell and build an image publicly that can help me in various different ways in my life. But as we adapt to these mechanisms and we think of our online identity so strategically, and we know that this is also because social media platforms kind of want us to think of our identity so strategically, there is a question looming. Do we risk losing our integrity in this process? Well, Zuckerberg definitely did not read a lot of social psychology if he believed in the words that he said in 2010. Circling back to Goffman, if we think along the lines of what Goffman calls symboling interactionism, we never truly have one identity, one self. Symbolic interactionism refers to a self-performance in which Goffman distinguishes between signs given naively, unconsciously, and signs given consciously, deliberately. For instance, signs about one's gender or marital status can be quite easily given away unconsciously, but they could also be calculated and emphasized or suppressed. But Goffman also stresses how this intentional presentation of ourselves is a very basic persona sculpting strategy. Even if it's naive or unaware, identity displays are always also part of self-expression. We cannot not communicate, as we in communication science love to say it. Just by existing in a social context, we give up something about ourselves, but that something will be understood differently in different contexts and by different people. So at the very core, identity can be understood as something that is always relational to others and to social interactions. So this does not mean that we do not have integrated identities, something at the core that makes us us, but it means that the ways in which we present ourselves in everyday life and in different contexts are dependent on what we are trying to achieve, and this can be conscious or unconscious. So in a way, our identity performance on social media is a very clear and more often than not an extreme form of showing a certain slice of ourselves, very deliberately. When I conduct interviews about social media and identity management with young people, they often refer to others as coming off as fake or very curated identities on social media, but they themselves are exactly the same online and offline. I also would like to think that I am the same person. And yes, I am the same person, but I choose the images that represent me. I choose the background that represents me. I choose the language that I use that represents me. If this makes me fake, then, well, there's not much we can do here. Because of this connective turn, we shifted from connectedness to connectivity on a large scale, and our social media experiences are dominated by content produced deliberately for social media rather than everyday occurrences of our friends. Sure, we also see that, but even that is curated. When I'm on a road trip with my friends, we take photos and we discuss which photos or videos should make it to our Instagram. But moreover, we see celebrities and influencers and memes and brands that are extremely calculated ways of existing online. And so a large segment of communications research about identity in social media is about authenticity. And what does it mean to be authentic on social media? Of course, in a way, authenticity is a floating signifier, a word that means so much and so little at the same time. Because what does it even mean to be authentic offline? How is it related to having integrity? How can I be my authentic self if we established that my identity is always a performance? Thank you for watching this educated rant about social media and identity. I am planning on making more of these videos, so join me in this endeavor, and I see you in the next one.